Ravenwood boarding school was known for its prestigious academic programs and beautiful Gothic architecture. The school's dormitories were sprawling buildings with long corridors and cozy rooms, perfect for students to rest and study. However, there was a dark side to Ravenwood's dorms. Students had been reporting strange occurrences for years. They would hear whispers in the night, feel unseen presences in their rooms, and see shadowy figures darting around the corridors. At first, the school administration dismissed the claims as mere rumors or the product of overactive imaginations. But as the reports continued to pile up, it became clear that something was amiss. Emily was a new student at Ravenwood, and she had heard the rumors about the haunted dorms. She didn't believe them, attributing the strange occurrences to the school's old age and the vivid imaginations of her fellow students. As she settled into her dorm room, she felt a sense of excitement and nervousness. She was eager to make new friends and excel in her studies. The first few nights passed without incident. Emily would study late into the night and then drift off to sleep, lulled by the sound of her roommate's gentle snores. But on the fourth night, Emily woke up to a faint whispering in her ear. The words were indistinguishable, but the voice was unmistakable. A soft, raspy whisper that sent shivers down her spine. At first, Emily thought it was just her roommate talking in her sleep, but as she listened more closely, she realized that the whispering was coming from outside her room. She got out of bed and crept to the door, pressing her ear against the wood to listen more closely. The whispering grew louder, and Emily could make out a few words. "Get out while you still can." Emily was terrified. She didn't know what to do or who to turn to. She considered telling her roommate, but she didn't want to seem like a scared child, so she decided to keep the incident to herself, hoping that it was just a one-time thing. But the whispering continued. Every night, Emily would hear the raspy voice warning her to leave the school. She started to feel like she was being watched, and the shadowy figures she had dismissed as mere rumors began to seem more real. She would catch glimpses of them out of the corner of her eye, darting around the corridors or peeking into her room. As the days passed, Emily became more and more withdrawn. She stopped attending classes, afraid of what might happen to her if she left her room. She stopped eating too, losing weight and energy. Her roommate grew concerned, but Emily couldn't bring herself to talk about the strange occurrences. One night, Emily decided to confront the shadowy figure. She had had enough of living in fear, and she wanted to know what was going on. She crept out of her room, her heart pounding in her chest, and began to search the corridors. She saw the figure lurking in the shadows, its presence seeming to grow more substantial as she watched. The figure beckoned to her, and Emily felt a strange compulsion to follow. She trailed the shadowy figure through the corridors, down to the basement, and into a hidden room deep beneath the school. The room was filled with old records and photographs, and in the center of the room, Emily saw a large leather-bound book. The shadowy figure began to speak, its voice growing clearer as it spoke. It told Emily the story of Ravenwood's dark past, of the students who had died in the school's dormitories, of the experiments that had been conducted on them, and of the curse that had been unleashed. As Emily listened, she realized that she was part of a larger story, one that went far beyond her own experiences. She felt a sense of connection to the shadowy figure, a sense of understanding that went beyond words. The figure finished speaking, and Emily felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that she had to leave the school, but she also knew that she would never forget the experience. As she turned to leave, she saw the shadowy figure one last time, its presence fading into the darkness. Emily returned to her room, her mind reeling with questions and doubts. She knew that she had to tell someone about what she had learned, but she wasn't sure who to trust. She decided to confide in her favorite teacher, Mrs. Jenkins, hoping that she would know what to do. Mrs. Jenkins listened to Emily's story, her expression growing more and more concerned. When Emily finished, Mrs. Jenkins nodded thoughtfully and said, "I believe you, Emily, I've seen strange things happening in this school too, but we need to be careful. There are those who don't want. Ashwood boarding school was a centuries-old institution, housed in a sprawling building that seemed to stretch on forever. The school's history was steeped in tradition and legend, and its students were proud to be a part of it. However, not everyone was happy about the school's legacy. Mr. Jenkins, a new teacher at Ashwood, had always been fascinated by the school's history. He spent countless hours poring over old records and talking to the school's oldest staff members. But as he delved deeper into the school's past, he began to notice strange occurrences. Doors would slam shut on their own, and the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridors at night. Some teachers reported seeing ghostly apparitions, and students claimed to have been touched by unseen hands. At first, Mr. Jenkins dismissed the reports as mere fantasy, but as he experienced the strange occurrences himself, he began to suspect that something was amiss. One night, as Mr. Jenkins was walking down the corridor, he saw a ghostly figure standing in front of him. The figure was transparent and seemed to be made of mist. Mr. Jenkins tried to speak to it, but the figure vanished into thin air. Determined to get to the bottom of the strange occurrences, Mr. Jenkins began to research the school's history more thoroughly. He discovered that Ashwood boarding school was built on an ancient burial ground, and the spirits of the dead were still lingering on the premises. As Mr. Jenkins dug deeper, he found out that the school's founder, Malcolm Ashwood, had been a wealthy and influential man who had made a pact with a dark entity to ensure the school's success. The entity had granted the school's students and faculty protection and prosperity, but at a terrible cost. The entity demanded a sacrifice every year, and Malcolm Ashwood had agreed to provide it. The sacrifice would be a student or a teacher chosen at random, and the entity would take their soul in exchange for the school's continued success. Mr. Jenkins realized that the ghostly apparitions and strange occurrences were a result of the entity's presence. Determined to break the curse, Mr. Jenkins began to gather evidence and build a case against the school's administration. He talked to other teachers and students, gathering stories and testimonials about the strange occurrences. He researched the school's history, looking for any mention of the pact or the entity. As Mr. Jenkins got closer to the truth, the strange occurrences escalated. Doors would slam shut with greater force, and the ghostly apparitions became more frequent. Mr. Jenkins began to feel like he was being watched, and he knew that the entity was aware of his investigation. One night, as Mr. Jenkins was working late in his office, he received a visit from the entity. The room grew cold, and the air seemed to thicken with an otherworldly presence. Mr. Jenkins felt a sense of dread as the entity spoke to him in a voice that was both ancient and evil. "You should not have meddled in things you don't understand," the entity said. "You will be the next sacrifice." Mr. Jenkins knew that he had to act fast. He gathered his evidence and confronted the school's administration, demanding that they take action to break the curse. The administrators were skeptical at first, but as Mr. Jenkins presented his evidence, they began to realize the truth. Together, Mr. Jenkins and the administrators worked to break the curse. They performed a ritual to cleanse the school of the entity's influence, and they worked to uncover the dark secrets of the school's past. It wasn't easy, and there were those who resisted their efforts. But in the end, they succeeded in breaking the curse, and the strange occurrences ceased. The school was forever changed, but Mr. Jenkins knew that it was for the better. He had uncovered a dark secret, and he had fought to bring the truth to light. As he looked out over the school's grounds, he felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had saved the school from itself, and he had given the students and faculty a chance to start anew. They told us never to ask about Dorm 13. When I transferred to Greystone boarding school in my final year, I noticed the missing number immediately. The dorm buildings were lined in a perfect row, 12 in total, except the space between dorms 12 and 14 was unusually wide, too wide, almost as if something had been there and was removed. My roommate Caleb was the first to say it aloud. "There was a dorm 13, he whispered on our first night, but they sealed it after the incident. I laughed nervously. "What incident?" Caleb just stared at the ceiling and said, "They say no one who slept there ever graduated or survived." Classes at Greystone were strict, quiet, and gray. The hallways echoed with the kind of silence that made you feel like someone was always walking behind you. A month passed. Then the dreams began. It started with whispers. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, Caleb already sitting up trembling. He said he could hear scratching from the empty space between the dorms at night, like nails on wood. I heard it too, faint but unmistakable. One night I finally asked a teacher. "There's no dorm 13, he snapped. "Stop asking." That same night, I saw someone walking into the darkness between dorm 12 and 14. I followed. It was a girl, in a white nightgown, long hair over her face. She didn't look like any student I'd seen before. She stopped in the middle of the empty lot and just stood there, motionless. Then I saw a door, a wooden rotted door standing upright with no walls, no structure, just the door frame tilted, half buried in overgrown weeds. The girl opened it and stepped in, and the door vanished. The space went back to being empty. The next day, Caleb was gone. No one spoke of him, not the teachers, not the students. It was like he'd never existed. Even his bed was made perfectly, with sheets I didn't recognize. A new student moved in by evening. I snapped. I confronted the headmaster. "I saw her," I yelled, "and Caleb followed her. He's gone." The headmaster didn't blink. He opened a drawer and pulled out an old yearbook, 1987. He turned to a page, pointed at a photo. "That's the girl you saw. Her name was Rebecca Hallow. Died in dorm 13 in 1987, the night it burned down, with 12 students inside. Some say she set the fire herself. The building collapsed before they could recover all the bodies." I couldn't sleep after that. Every night I heard the scratching again, then tapping, then whispering my name over and over, sometimes from inside my closet, sometimes from under my bed. I started counting the dorms differently. 1, 2, 3. There was always an extra shadow. One night I woke to see Rebecca standing at the foot of my bed, pale, soaking wet, her hair crawling with embers, eyes burned black. "You're next," she whispered. I screamed. No one came. The next morning, my window was cracked open from the outside, and carved into the wood above my bed was a number. 10. I tried to leave. They didn't let me. "Boarders stay until the term ends," the headmaster said with a thin smile. I asked for help. No one answered. I begged my parents to pick me up. They said I had never called them. My phone logs were blank. I don't know how long I've been here anymore. Days blend into each other. The teachers walk in silence, the students speak less and less. At night, I hear the others whisper about seeing her, about hearing knocking from the space where dorm 13 once stood. They say if you open the door in your dream, you disappear. The last boy who did, Daniel, was replaced the next day by a smiling, quiet new student. The same pale eyes, the same thin grin, the same scent of smoke. If you're reading this, don't come to Greystone. And never follow the girl in white. She only comes for the lonely. And she always brings you home to dorm 13, where no one ever leaves.